Hello everybody, this is Lila in Hawaii. I've been asked to show some pictures of my paintings, watercolors, and maybe some acrylics in here too, and I'm kind of trying to figure out how to do it. So I'm starting today's video with maybe I thought about 20 or so of some of my more recent art, and I'll try and explain a little bit about what it is or how it came about. Anyhow, so here we go. The first thing I'm going to show you, this is actually on canvas, and I had this old canvas, punched a couple of holes here and hung it or put it on there to look like it's hanging sideways, or maybe even a book cover. And this is a French street scene. I did this in kind of my sort of a slapdash loose style. Sometimes I do it very loose and colorful like this, and other times I'll make it more where you can see the images better. But in this case I just wanted to get the color on there. To me, with art and painting, I'm self-taught, never have taken a class, and I've painted all my life. In fact, I put myself through nursing college by painting. I had my first art show after I graduated from nursing school. I had my first one in Naples, Italy, and that was actually the only one I ever had in Europe. I moved on to Europe to be an artist, so I thought. Well, I was a starving artist, so I was forced to come back to New Zealand, then finally to the United States. Anyway, so this is the first one, and sometimes I have trouble with images, so this is kind of an experiment. I wouldn't say it's great, but I like the colors of it. I think it kind of captures one of the street scenes in Arles in France. And this is another, just random, they're not in any kind of sequence or order, but this is a fisherman's hut made of kind of like a log cabin, you might say. Could be in Hawaii, could be on any of the islands because there are palm trees. And I added some glitter on the palm trees to make them stand out a little bit more. And here are two personages fishing. It's a man and his son. And so that's the next one. Okay, let's see what else I can show you. Okay, so here's a picture of, I would say this is more of a mountain scene. And there's a image of a cottage up in the mountains. This is getting towards winter, so there'd be some fir trees, and I've put a little sprinkling of stars and sort of sanding on the fir trees to make it look a little bit like snow with some white spots and things. And most of my skies, I either leave them blank, or if I paint them, I'll often put some birds. I love to put birds in the skies. I'm not crazy about just blank skies. So this is actually quite neat, the way the colors sort of blend and merge. So you have this sort of a aqua, and then a magenta, and then it goes to a lighter aqua with some white, and then it comes right down with the imagery, and then to where we have some soil showing through. But that's getting on towards winter, kind of a wintry scene. This one is kind of a hodgepodge. I don't know what you'd call this. It was a beach thing I had in my mind in Galveston, Texas. I lived in Texas for quite a while, and we used to have, or down there they have these sort of huts that are all sort of shapes and sizes, and have antenna and things, almost look like ship's rigging. And I was trying to remember how it was. I haven't been there for many years, so I thought I would try and remember how it looked. I was always intrigued by the rigging of ships, and then here I've made it into sort of like an antenna so that you could hear with the radio or something. It's not one of my best efforts, but I like it. I like the colors. Okay, here's another ocean scene, and I have a hard time with, as I said, with people. And however, this was two surfers paddling out into the sunset, and this would be in Hawaii. And of course they're going out, so you see the back of them, which is kind of another idea that I haven't played with much, and I haven't played with the human form very much. However, I like the idea. I like the idea of the sunset. So that's what that one is. Okay. Okay, so this would be a still life, and it's just almost sort of like a Van Gogh pot of flowers. Not one of my best efforts, but it's colourful, and it sort of gives you the idea of what a pot of flowers might look like with its glass. And so you can see the stems of the flowers here. And then I splatter it with some blue to just give it a little extra something. Not one of my favorites, but I'm just showing it to you anyway because it's in this particular pile. Okay, so the next painting, I kind of like this one. And this is actually in Europe. It could be Italy or could be France, and it's a bridge. And here are some people fishing over the edge of the bridge, and it's autumn, so you see that the colors are autumn-like, and you see a clock tower and some Lombardy poplars there. I like the colors of this one. This one would make nice fabric if it was printed on fabric. I like that one. Okay, that's another one. Okay, this one's not exactly abstract, but getting along that way. And I've had some comments on this because they said, "Oh, I've never seen blue buildings like this." However, it was sort of in shadow a little bit, and I liked the contrast of the tanny colors. And then the aquas and blues. And this, of course, would be in Europe, and it's one of those buildings that are multi-storied, all joined together with the chimney and the poplar in the background. And people seem to like this one. It's caught on. I've made this kind of image many times. Okay, here's another one this one, I don't particularly think it turned out. What I wanted to do was I wanted to do the path coming from over the hills, and here's some trees up on the hills, and some cottages down below with poppies in the field. And my idea was to make this into two pictures. I was going to cut it. For example, I thought it would be good to cut it like this and then like this, so I would have two pictures. All these are about 8 by 10, by the way. I haven't done that, but it has a lot of, this is pen and ink, a lot of pen and ink. Don't always use pen and ink. In fact, I don't use it that often. However, this seemed to suit this style, and I would say this was more in Tuscany. Now here's one that's definitely Tuscany. I did go to Tuscany on a trip and did a lot of photography and painting. Unfortunately, when I was there, it snowed, so I had a hard time capturing imagery when it wasn't snowing. But this would be similar to where there were grapes growing. They always seem to have poppies, fields of poppies. I like the way the buildings are tall, with lots of windows and a very small, narrow roof. Sometimes there'd be a chimney on the roof. In this case, no. But I kind of like this one. I like the colors of this. It's rather simple, but I think it turned out quite well. For me, anyway. I'm kind of picky. Okay, what's this one? Oh, this one is this is a grape vineyard in France, and here's the house, the chateau they call them, and with some it's sort of autumny foliage behind. And here I tried to make sort of stripes going this way of the plants, grape plants, of course, grape vines, and then some of the poplar again, and part of it is of the building is obscured by that. And I like that. I like to hide things. I'm very much into hiding things. So if I can, I'll just do half the building and put some leaves or flowers or something over it just to hide it. But I particularly like this, though. I think that came out pretty well. Okay, here's another. This one is an island. I live in Hawaii, so this is Hawaiian. And these are beachcombers, really. So in the background you see some palm trees and a few birds and some mountains, and here's the ocean. And so this was kind of a test for myself to see if I could put all the layers that I saw in front of me from the horizon down in different colors yet blended together. For example, these are the mountains in the background. This is where the ocean starts with the waves, white caps on the shore. Then as we come towards the beach where they're walking, of course they wouldn't be walking in water, so they're walking on sand, and I had to change the color, yet I had to blend it so that it was all together, work together synergistically. And then as the sand came closer to me, the viewer, or you the viewer, the color changed again to a sort of ochre colors. And these two are beachcombing with a little dog, and they've got their little bucket there to pick up shells. Okay, this one, I don't know what I was thinking with this, but I wanted to this one's bigger. This one is about 10 by 12, and I wanted to do a village, and I had in mind a sort of a New England sort of a village, but I'm not really into New England style painting, Grandma Moses or whatever. I just thought that I could conjure up something in my head, and this is the way it turned out anyway. And I must say it is quite tricky to do all these buildings and then have them layered, sort of each one in front of, for example, this one is in front, this one's behind, these two are behind this one, and then this one's behind these two, and then there's one behind those two. So it's quite tricky to figure it all out. And in order to do that, I did do a little pen and ink. Not a whole lot, but a bit. And just kept the background sort of a wash of greens and blues, blues for the sky and greens for grass or whatever. And then, of course, villages to me always have a church with a steeple. So that's what that one is. Not quite my style, my traditional style, but I like the way it turned out. I think it's be great for wall art. This one I feel like is more my style, actually. Not that I have a style, because I'm always changing it. But this is some buildings in Italy, and probably near Venice or something. So here's the railing from a bridge, and then here is 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings. And in order to make them look old and rustic and time-worn, I did a lot of dry brushing. So dry brushing means that I can see the brush strokes. I didn't blend it in. So there was a lot of dry brushing, a little bit of splattering. And if you have been to those villages in Italy and France, they seem to always have these lanterns that hang like that. And so pretty much I've got a whole series of this actually. They all have these lanterns hanging like that. And many times they'll have a chimney. And they have these brick roofs. And it seems that they have a whole series of windows. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Could be 5 almost. And here's some more. And then here's one. This has a shelf underneath where there's a plant growing, or a potted plant. What else? Here's another. This is the roof of another building here. And here's a doorway. And more potted geraniums. And this actually was a hanging plant. And this is a hanging plant. I like the colors of this. And I do like dry brush. This one's quite large. It's about 10 by 12. And it's one of my favorites because of the dry brushing. I like the texture of it. All of these that I have shown you are done on watercolor paper. So I'm going to close this because I think I've chatted too much, but I thought I would give you a little idea of how I go about some of my painting and what's included in them. And I'll do some more later. Thank you so much for watching and for showing interest in my art. As I say, I have no training at all. I just sort of mess around, but to me color is crucial. I've got to have the right colors, and it's got to be the main part of my image. Hello, this is Lila. I thought I would show you where I paint. I'm outside on my lanai, and I have a table here. This is my table. I have, of course, a cheap box of paints that I use for patch up and so forth, or maybe on fabric. I have here is a jar of, these are not my best brushes, these are my second best. These ones are more like acrylics and so forth. Big jar of them though. I can use them for watercolor, but I keep the watercolor and acrylic separate. Of course I use mostly watercolor. And if I come around here, these are the little jars I use for my water. Here's some of my, goodness me. Okay, so these are my best brushes here. These ones are special sable brushes for watercolor, and there's a variety. I actually bought 2 sets of them, so they're different sizes and shapes. But I keep these separate, and that's what that is. And then of course here's some paints here. The sun's probably not good here. Okay, so here's some paints, and here's some paint there. And then this one I like. These are very strong paints, these ones. Very strong. So I do a lot of blending and mixing here. Then I have also several sets of these kinds of paints. Let me see, can you see these? Okay, I have several sets of these. I like these because they pretty much have all the colors, and in the top of them here I can mix. I can mix the colors I want, and in the little things, and when I'm going to use them I just take some, let me see if I can do this. Oh my goodness. When I want to use them, I'll just simply take some water and I'll give them a little bit of a spray to get them started, to wet them a little bit. And so this is the bright one. I have a bright and I have a pastel. So that's the brights. And then this one is the pastels. of this. So these are sets of paints. I used to use, and I still do actually, tubes of paint. However, in order to use a lot of tubes, I have to have a palette, and I'm always messing up my palettes. And I find that these really work just as well as a palette or as tubes. But I still have the tubes, and I certainly use them. You name it, I've got all kinds of paints. Not a shortage of paints. I also have boxes of acrylic paints, but that's not exactly what I want. And then my papers, I have all kinds of watercolor papers here. Just different pads of paper. I have different sizes. I'm not going to show you all of them, but this is one block here, 140 pound with 30 sheets. They're not cheap, but I get them mostly from Walmart, and they're quite heavy, but they last a long time. Anyhow, that's kind of it. So I thought I would just show you when I'm showing you some artwork too.